Sawadee krap. I'm Georgie Minting. I'm a consultant in Network for the Development of Agricultural Cooperative in Asia and the Pacific. Welcome to Needed Videos. I present special videos on international workshop on aquaculture value chain organized by NEDAC in partnership with Asian Institute of Technology Bangkok in 2020. Our website is www.nedac.info. You can enjoy the videos on Needed official YouTube channel or on Facebook NEDACHO. Best wishes. Good morning. Auspicious night to you all. I am Joy Minting, Program Officer for Asian Institute of Technology Alumni Association from Bangkok. Today, I will be in charge of this webinar session. I would like to invite Mr. Dora to introduce yourself. Mr. Dora, please.
Good morning, Namaskar, Swadip to everyone for today's webinar on aquaculture and value chain, sir. I am TPR Dora, President FISCOFED, that is National Fisheries Cooperative Federation of India. It is a great occasion that NEDAC has organized this highly valuable webinar for the fishermen and women of these regions of the world across the continents. As we know that the pandemic has created new challenges in aquaculture and its value chain throughout the world. However, some of the challenges can become new opportunity for the growth of this sector. I am sure our fishery cooperative activity across country would learn from the proceedings of the technical webinar on aquaculture and value chain. We look forward to hearing the experts, researchers, policymakers, business leaders, and stakeholders on one platform and to get idea to empower our members. I take this opportunity to extend my best wishes to all the organizing agency, various dignitaries, and participants from various countries associated with the webinar for a grand success. Thank you. And now I request Sri Sandeep Kumar Naik ji, Managing Director NCDC and Chairman NEDAC to deliver his welcome address. Naik,
Namaskar. Namaskar. I am Sandeep Naik, Chairman NEDAC and Managing Director of the National Cooperative Development Corporation, Government of India. It is a great pleasure. Thank you, Mr. Dora. It is a great pleasure and privilege for NEDAC to organize this webinar on a very important topic. Ambassador Suchitra Durai, Honorable Federal Secretary of Government of India, Department of Fisheries, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, who is in fact the guiding spirit behind this massive fisheries revolution that India has unleashed in recent months as a strategy to uplift people at different levels. Professor Dr. Saleen, Chair of the Aquaculture and Resources Management Program in AIT Bangkok, who are the partners of our NEDAC. Mr. Boku Nakano, the Head of Quality Control in Coke Trade Japan of JCCU. We are a partner organization under the International Cooperative Alliance. Dr. R.R. Singh, the Assistant Vice President of CP Foods, the major group in aqua-related issues. Dr. Tipparat Pongathapinach, Aquaculture Officer, FAO-RIP, the network which was set up by FAO, the NEDAC network. And I also welcome our anchor, Ms. Kat, from AIT Alumni Association and others. In fact, I would like to mention here that this aquaculture webinar has invited, has evinced interest. We had more than 750 registrations from 30 countries. This is being live broadcast on YouTube. So a large number of people are watching it on YouTube live also, apart from who have been given access for registration or registering directly on this, but others are doing it directly. The NEDAC as an organization has its in its footprint across a large number of countries. We have currently 54 members in NEDAC. It is mostly devoted to agriculture and allied sector cooperatives in Asia Pacific and allied regions. Allied regions will include Europe, South America, and Africa. So we have members from these areas also. Without taking much time, I would now request Dr. Miss Suchitra Durai. I'll request our anchor to formally welcome Miss Suchitra Durai, our ambassador in India and also permanent representative of India to UNESCAP. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Kath, please formally welcome the ambassador.
May I respectfully invite Her Excellency Mrs. Suchitra Durai, the Ambassador of the Republic of India, to deliver the opening remarks. Her Excellency Ambassador, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Namaste Savadika. Shri Sandeep Kumar Nayak, Managing Director of NCDC and Chairman of NEDAC, and my good friend, Dr. Rajiv Ranjan, Secretary, Department of Fisheries, Government of India, Professor Dr. Salin, the Chair of the AARM, SERD, Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, Mr. Boku Nakano, Co-op Trade Japan, Dr. R.R. Singh, Assistant Vice President of Superfoods India, distinguished participants. I'm very happy that this webinar on aquaculture and value chains is being organized by NEDAC jointly with the Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok. It is indeed a very timely initiative. And I congratulate NEDAC, of course, as has been mentioned already by Shri Nayak, for actively promoting the cause of cooperatives in the field of agriculture, including fisheries and aquaculture sector in the Asia Pacific region through capacity building and training programs. The role of cooperatives is indeed very important at every stage of the value chain in aquaculture, from producers through secondary cooperatives to consumer cooperatives. A cooperative approach can make a significant difference in the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Cooperatives have capacities to achieve food security, inclusive growth, and people's empowerment. The COVID-19 pandemic has indeed affected the global value chain, including in the fisheries and aquaculture sector. Sanitary measures, market access, transportation and logistical issues have impacted the livelihood of fishermen as well as food security and nutrition. The topic of this webinar is indeed very timely and provides opportunity to discuss the ways and means to strengthen the global value chains in the aquaculture sector. It is also directly linked, as we have said, to the SDG 2, which seeks to end hunger and all forms of malnutrition and increasing agricultural productivity, as well as SDG 14 on the sustainable use of ocean resources. Sustainable development of fisheries and aquaculture can be a key factor in achieving reduction of hunger and poverty in the region. Fish, of course, as we all know, is an essential source of animal protein, micronutrients, and omega-3 fatty acids, which are vital in low-income countries as well as in small island developing states where marine products are the staple diet. Fisheries and aquaculture sector play an important role in the Indian economy. We have a long coastline of over 7,500 kilometers, along with inland water resources. India also has a natural advantage in the aquaculture sector with large freshwater bodies. India ranks as the second largest aquaculture producer in the world, and the sector contributes, in fact, to 1% of India's GDP. It is also a principal source of livelihood for a large section of population, particularly in coastal areas. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has identified the Blue Revolution as an important catalyst of economic development in the country. Recently, the Government of India has launched the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana with an outlay of around $3 billion for the holistic development of the fisheries sector in the country. Government of India has also created a bridge to, for targeted development of these sectors. India allows 100% foreign direct investment in aquaculture through the automatic route, but under controlled conditions. Given the expertise of countries in the region in fisheries and aquaculture sector, there's good scope for cooperation, including in sharing of technology and best practices such as preservation and packaging technology to optimize the utilization of fish by increasing the shelf life and diversifying the products. The role of NEDAC in promoting ability of stakeholders to diversify the market of aquaculture products, especially through supermarkets and use of the IT and digital tools for reaching to new markets would be very important. India and Thailand are major producers of fishery and aquaculture products. There's ample opportunity in the field of processing, preservation and marketing for cooperation between the two countries. And I'm very happy to note that CP Aquaculture India, which is a subsidiary of the CP Group of Thailand, is already present in India, and of course, one of their top officials also participating in today's webinar. And being a maritime neighbor, there's huge potential for collaboration both in production and trade of fisheries and aquaculture products between India and Thailand. Indian states on the eastern coast of India, as well as the Union territories of Andaman and Nicobar, would be very much interested in promoting trade of fresh marine products with Thailand as well as other countries in Southeast Asia. India has also joined Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, Maldives, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Thailand to collaborate through the Bay of Bengal large marine ecosystem project to better the lives of our coastal populations and to improve the regional management of the Bay of Bengal environment and its fisheries. Government of India is also implementing the integrated coastal zone management project to build national capacity for implementation of comprehensive coastal management approach in the country. The project focuses on conservation of coastal and marine resources, pollution management, and improving the livelihood opportunities of coastal communities. Inclusive business models are particularly important to make value chains work for poor communities. I'm confident that today's webinar will throw up very interesting ideas on aquaculture and value chains, and I wish the program much success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for your valuable remarks. As per agenda, I would like to request Dr. Rajiv Rajan, Federal Secretary, Department of Fishery, under the Ministry of Fishery, Animal Husbandry and Dairying from the Government of India, to deliver the inaugural address. Dr. Rajiv, please.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Sandeep Kumar Nayak, Chairman NEDAC, for organizing this wonderful technical webinar on aquaculture and value chains, and for the participation from Mrs. Suchitra Durai, our ambassador in Thailand and permanent representative of India to UNESCAP, Mr. TPR Dora, who's moderating, Chairman of ISCOFED, of the key resource person, Professor Dr. K.R. Salin from Asian Institute of Technology, Mr. Boku Nakano, Cooperative Trade, Japan, Mr. Dr. R.R. Singh from CP Foods, and other distinguished participants who are in this technical webinar. In the next 15 minutes or so, I would like to discuss a few things about what we are doing in India in terms of the great work that we think needs to be done in terms of realizing the potential that fishery sector is having. So I have a small presentation. So if that can be put on the, if it can be put there, that would be easy. We have shared the presentation, and can that be put on?
message about.
Yeah. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, it can be maybe a little minimized because yeah, that's fine. So maybe I just thought I will quickly run through some of them because it has a lot of information, and to the larger audience, it will be useful to know that the fishery sector is a sunrise sector for India, as it is for many parts of the world. And some key indicators I have put in here. It has been growing at a very impressive rate for the last 5 years. The fishery sector and the aquaculture sector is included in that, is growing at 10.88%, and the growth rate of the fish production is at 7.53% for the last 5 years, and the exports have been growing at 9.71%. So if you look at it, India is the second largest aquaculture. The fish production is there, and the second largest aquaculture producer in the world. It has a 7.73% of global share of fish production. It is also the fourth largest seafood exporter in the world. And recognizing the potential, the government of India has created a new Department of Fisheries in last 1 year back. And after that, a new ministry in June 2019 has been created, because it has been realized by the political leadership under the Honorable Prime Minister of India that this is one sector which we need to champion, and it will be very, very useful in not only contributing to the national GVA, but also providing affordable source of rich animal protein for nutrition, income, and livelihood to large number of people in India. We have in India about 28 million livelihoods dependent on the fishery sector. And in our quest for looking at a 5 trillion economy, we feel that the fisheries sector is contributing in a big way. It contributes 1.2% to 4% of the national GVA and 7.28% of the agriculture GVA, and almost 18% of the agriculture exports. So next slide, please. If you look at that, this is just what I had mentioned, that last 5 years, I said it has grown at 11%. So you can see that now we have, made all the investments, the right policies to ensure that's on a steady wicket and is growing very fast, both the fishery sector and the fish production also. Next, please. Next slide, please. This gives a snapshot of the exports. Now, as I said, that not only we are looking at production in a big way, about 150 lakh tons, 1.5 million tons of fish production. We are also looking at the exports in a big way. We are trying to double our exports. And we have currently 7 billion export trade, US $7 billion export trade, which is 4.35% of the global share. And we are the largest shrimp exporter currently. And this is growing at 8%, as I mentioned. And but it's still a small portion of the entire global export production of fish, value export of 164 billion. So as I said, that we have to be part of the global value chain, which is what this seminar of this kind helps us to. And we wanted to increase our footprints, which I'll dwell on a little more detail. Next slide, please. Now, as I was mentioning, that the Department of Fisheries at the federal level, which I work for, is responsible for development of fisheries aquaculture, and which is the primary responsibility of the state. So we work together, we supplement the efforts and complement the efforts of the states through policy support and financial support. And we want to do the promotion and development of fisheries and related activities. And also at the same time, a proper regulatory and fish stock, importation, quarantine, certification systems for properly managing the aquatic disease and health management system. And we also do cooperation with international organizations. Also look at infrastructure development, marketing, export promotion. So we look at all-round development and management of fisheries in the country with the aim of doubling the fishers and fish farmers worker. That is our current aim, and we are working towards it. Next, please. The resources that we have, India has a huge, both marine and inland resources for fisheries. This is just a snapshot of that. The length of the coastline is 8,000 plus kilometers. We have exclusive economic zone of more than 2 million square kilometers. And we have a large number, 1,547 fishing harbors and landing centers. And we have 3,000, almost 3,500 coastal fishing villages. So we have a large population which is looking at it. We are harnessing 70% of our current potential in the marine sector, and 5 states of the country, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh, they are the leading marine production states. Next, please. The next slide actually talks about the inland fisheries resources. Again, here we are actually only utilizing 50% of our capacity, of our potential. And if you look at it, we have huge resources in terms of large number of reservoirs. We have 3.15 million hectares under reservoirs. We have large wetlands, brackish water, ponds and tanks. So all this is an area we have given resource-wise, that is 42% of reservoirs, today contribute to inland fisheries. So the pie diagram gives that. Next, please. This talks about the policy support. We are now looking at responsible, sustainable, and equitable growth of the fisheries sector. And for that, not only that we are growing very at a high rate that we mentioned, we have a huge, diverse and vast resources. And we have, because we are a tropical country, multiple commercial species, and the huge skilled manpower, huge consumer base. So that is why we feel that with a strong technical backup and R&D and the proper policy support provided by the government in terms of the various policies that we have come, which I'll explain very quickly, some of them, which may be interest to some of the participants. Next, please. I've mentioned about that because of a huge potential that we have, and we need to have also huge investments also, because the returns are very good in the sector. So in terms of investment opportunities in aquaculture, I just wanted to list down in terms of production and productivity. Our aim is to increase the production and productivity both. And for that, we are investing in increasing the areas under aquaculture, both in saline and brackish water areas, reservoir cage cultivation, mariculture cage cultivation. Ornamental fisheries, we are giving a lot of importance. Bivalve farming, seaweed farming, and value addition. So we are basically looking at technology-based aquaculture. And also there is a huge potential to look at support services of brood banks, seed banks, hatcheries, contract farming, and feed manufacturing. So these are big investment areas. I will go into a little more detail. Next slide, please. In terms of the investment opportunities in value chain, again, we are looking at how the entire value chain can be improved further. So in handling centers at the harbor, fish landing centers, we wanted to do a public-private partnership mode. In cold chain, we already have, and we wanted to augment it. Ice plants, processing infrastructure, modern markets, value addition. So we are basically looking for higher scale of operations, improving livelihoods, and there are subsidiary units which are there, like the boat building yards, gear manufacturing, communications, devices, safety appliances, aquaria manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. So the large numbers in terms of what we are looking at. You see, currently we are, about 150 lakh tons. That is 15 million tons of fish production. We are going to go to 22 million tons in the next 5 years. That's a large, target to be achieved. But we are confident because of the past growth rates and the huge investments that we are putting in. And it helps because this is a big support for livelihood to a large number of people. So we are increasing the average annual growth of fish production to 9% by increasing productivity. Our current productivity levels are not very high. So that is why it is very easy for us to increase it more. And that is what, given the size and diversity in India, it is a challenge and we are working towards it. Fisheries exports, we are looking at 1 lakh crores, that is doubling of the exports. Post-harvest losses we need to reduce. Currently they are at high levels of almost 20-25%. We have to half it to almost 10%. And employment generation is very large in this sector. So we are targeting almost more than 5 million employment generation in the next 5 years through a special scheme which I will mention, the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Currently, our per capita consumption of fish is quite low. It's just 5 to 6 kgs. We wanted to double it to 10 to 12 kgs, but still it will be much lower than the global, of 20 or 21 kgs. So that is why you can see there is a huge potential for growth of fisheries and aquaculture in the country. Next, please. This slide just talks about the potential and what we are doing. So the gap, if you see, is large in terms of marine. We are, as I had mentioned, we are doing almost 70-75%. In inland, we are just doing 55-60%. So both we have a huge scope for harnessing in a responsible and sustainable way the production levels. Next, please. I'll now talk about the investments that we are planning from the government side, particularly the total investments of a huge, we are looking at $9 billion investments in the sector. And this is both from the center and states put together. We have a very excellent model of cooperative federalism in India. We have a large number of states and union territories. We all work together for the common goal of improving fishery sector. And center is planning $5.5 billion investments. This is primarily coming from 3 sources. The Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, that's a very ambitious scheme launched just last month. And we have grounded it already. And this scheme, I'll cover a little more detail because it's a very interesting umbrella scheme. And we have currently a 2-year-old program, which is the Fisheries Infrastructure Fund, which is a $1 billion for critical gaps of fisheries infrastructure improvement. And we are also having a World Bank assisted strengthening of fisheries value chain, which is almost $2 billion program. So the center is putting in about 5 billion plus investments, and the states on their part are, they will be putting more than $3 billion investments. So all this put together will be leveraged by the private sector, because the private sector is very dynamic in India, and they have done us proud in terms of what they have done in terms of exports, particularly in the shrimp sector. And it's a shining example of synergy and between the facilitative public policy and private sector investment. So we wanted this cooperation to grow further. And this is how we are looking at huge investments, unprecedented for a sector like fisheries. And this is what we are planning. Next, please. In terms of the development scheme I mentioned, we had the Blue Revolution in the last 5 years going, where we had investment 3,000 crores, and it has reached a level, and now we are going to the next phase, which is the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Next, please. So all these will ensure that we have a very, very responsible and harnessing of fisheries and potential in the country. And we are looking at modernizing and strengthening of the value chain and doubling fishers and farmers' income, as I mentioned. And it will contribute to the social, physical, and economic security for fishers and fish farmers, along with a very robust fisheries management and regulatory framework. So these are the objectives of the very ambitious Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, which we are currently implementing. Next, please. So along with, as I mentioned, the whole purpose is to enhance fish production and productivity through expansion, intensification, diversification, and productive utilization of land and water. This is done through various methods. So I'm just listing down a few of these initiatives In aquaculture, we have fresh saline and brackish water, and we are looking at more investments in mariculture for livelihood, sustainable and responsible fisheries. For that, we are looking at quality brood, seed and feed certification, and ease of doing business in the sector. This is by more value creation, more value addition, value realization, and again a variety of things that we are doing, particularly focusing on ornamental fisheries, where it's almost a 20 billion global trade, and we are just scratching the surface in India. We think that it contribute 0.7 million jobs by looking at this sector. So basically, our aim is to increase both production and productivity. Next slide also gives you some more sectors. We are looking at entrepreneurship models, PPP models, and new types of technology in a large way, the recirculatory aquaculture system, the biofloc. We are looking at traceability and certification in a big way, disease-free zones and aquaculture zonation. And this can be done through large number of fish farmers, producer organizations that we are going to make, and we are already in the process of working on these. We are also looking at, in a big way, more of cage cultivation, both in reservoirs and in the sea. So we are looking at large number of harbor developments through the PPP model also, and branding and advocacy, because domestic consumption also, along with the exports, we also have to look at the increase in domestic consumption. And for that, we are planning more extension services. And seaweed cultivation is another area where we want to take up in a big way, because particularly it helps in women empowerment. So all this will add to what we are planning for. So next slide gives you a little bit on the other scheme that I have, which is the FIDF, the Fisheries and Aquaculture Infrastructure Development Fund. That is for, as I mentioned, looking at gaps in the infrastructure and putting investments there. The fund size is 1 billion. We give 3% interest subvention. We have already approved schemes of US $424 million, and that is what we are working further. This ongoing scheme, and this is where the private sector can also get funding. The states come up for funding. So this is a very good scheme for enhancing infrastructure in the fisheries sector. Next slide, please. The World Bank Assistance Scheme, as I mentioned, is the one that we are now finalizing. It will be in 2 phases. The first phase will be $300 million for 4 years each. And under this, we are looking at total investments of a very large sum, almost 2,000 million US. And these are various components of the scheme. So I'll not go into it. This is again, you may wonder that, look, already we have a very major scheme, and then what are we doing in this? So whatever we have looked at in terms of further strengthening areas which we could not cover fully in the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, we are taking in the World Bank assisted scheme. Next, please. Now, very quickly, because time is running, so I will quickly skip through some of the slides. Just give you a flavor of the kind of variety of programs that we have. We are looking at species diversification in a big way, both marine fish, whether they are pampano, cobia, grouper, or seaweed, or brackish water, sea bass, shrimps, mud crab. So variety of diversification of species, and this is done with the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, Fisheries Research Institutions. We have MOPEDA, which is our export development agency. We are working with fisheries colleges. So we have a large program and large number of stakeholders. The key is to increase the total fish production, enhance productivity, for which we have investments of almost $300 million planned. Next, please. Cage cultivation, I was mentioning, is a big area. This is one of the strategies that we are doing. It has investments of $80 million, and we are looking at 5% area under some major reservoirs to be taken up for putting in cages. And we have a proper leasing policy, and we're working with the states for that. And entrepreneurship models are being worked out and are currently being done to ensure that we have large number of participation in this. Next, please. Similarly, brackish water aquaculture is another area, cold chain and marketing infrastructure development, because our target is to double the exports. So this will also help in a big way. Next, please. Our whole aim is to look at how we can create wealth from wastelands. And wastelands are those lands which have become saline or alkaline. The soils have become infested with salinity or alkalinity, and they are not fit for the normal crop husbandry. So we have identified such areas in some specific states, and we are using technology, convergence with new technology like biofloc and other departments of the government like rural development, agriculture, and we are trying to do this in a big way. This is in itself a huge initiative, and there are a lot of strategies. So this will help the farmers in a big way. Next, please. Cold water fisheries is another area. India being so large, it has mostly tropical areas, but it also has Himalayan regions. And cold water fisheries is another big area that we are looking at. So in that, we are again looking at trout fish hatcheries, and there are a large number of states that we are working. In Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Sikkim, and Uttarakhand. Next, please. Technology infusion is a very major initiative. We want to have more crop per drop, and for that we have lined up investments of $165 million US. And as I mentioned, new technology. This is where this particular program that we have will be very useful, because we are looking at new types of technology, how technology will increase value enhance the value chain working, and in that, like RAS, biofloc, aquaponics, the integrated multi-tropic aquaculture, pen culture, high density pond aquaculture. Some of the regions in the sector have done well, and we can collaborate to look at more technology infusion, more investments coming in, and that's what we like to do. Next, please. Marine cage culture is another area where we think we can also get some of the capture fisheries, sea-going fishermen taken, and that will be risk, as a risk resilience strategy, it will be useful, and convergence with other FIDF and all that. So in a big way, we are looking at it, the investments of $85 million US and employment of 0.4 millions. Next. Ornamental fisheries, I mentioned, is a big potential, and we are looking at $77 million US investments. And currently, we have not a big presence, but we have a huge domestic market. So we are trying to promote more of, taking it as a pet and a hobby, keeping fish at home, in schools and colleges, in public places. So this is one area where we are looking at set standards and certification, and taking it further. Next, please. Seaweed cultivation I mentioned already, and this is a big area where we would like to work, and we have targeted because of economic empowerment of coastal women, and the risk is very less, and huge potential exists. So we are looking at this in a big way. Next, please. Integrated aqua parks. The whole idea is to have a cluster-based approach. So we have looked at one-stop integrated park for entire fisheries value chain, and this will help. It's a hub and spoke model that we are looking at, and this we have looked at specific themes. Like there could be a shrimp park in North India, a seaweed park can be in the south, ornamental park can be in the eastern part of India, a marine tuna park or northeast park can be there for northeastern region, tilapia park, a pangasius park. So they can be a multi-purpose park. So like this, we are looking at a strategy of integrated aqua parks. Next, please. Entrepreneurship model is what we are encouraging, because we understand that the participation should not be entirely from the government side alone. It should not be a subsidy-based kind of a program. It should be based on beneficiary participation in a big way. Then only it can be sustainable. And for that, we have found out, we are working out at different models, which is part of the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. Next, please. So as I mentioned, the the cold chain and retail chain development, especially for urban retail market, for urban fish kiosk is very important. We are working in a big way to make available hygienic fish at affordable rates, uniform prices, and for that aggressive marketing is required to make sure that a healthy and affordable protein is available in terms of more fish. So for that, we are doing a lot of efforts in terms of e-marketing, certification, NFDB, hand labeling. So all this is going in a big way in terms of improving the cold chain and the retail chain. Next, please. Ultimately, just to summarize, we are looking at the entire value chain. In terms of value addition, we wanted to improve products or processes, and value addition is required extra for exports because currently we are not doing much of value addition in exporting. So there again, we like to work with other countries, with other stakeholders who are part of this webinar also, to how we can improve our value addition system. We need to also reduce quantitative and qualitative losses to increase value realization. At the same time, more value creation through certification, traceability, and blockchain. All these are to be done through more of investments in infrastructure, more of innovations in startups and incubators. So these are big, as I said, more opportunities are available in India, and this is a good area to work with. Next. So I will quickly not get into a lot of other, for example, we are doing more of fishing harbors, modernization and landing centers to ensure better hygienic handling of fish. This is again a huge investment, almost 8,000 crores, more than $1 billion. And this is converging with Sagarmala, which is with the Ministry of Shipping scheme. So like that, you can see, this is just a flavor of huge investments coming up across all sectors, whether it's in the hardcore infrastructure of fishing harbor or the value chain improvement. Next, please. We are also looking at integrated modern coastal fishing villages. We are calling the Blue Villages as a part of the FAO Blue Growth Initiative. And it will help in more of tourism improvement, the sport fishing, surfing, a lot of areas, a lot of things, but it will also help vulnerable communities and ecotourism in a sustainable way, disaster resilience, waste disposal. We want to have it zero plastic villages, modern logistics and cold chain, and this will be by integrating all stakeholders and relying on innovative methods and new technology. So the SDG 2030, if you look at it, SDG 14, we're looking at that in a big way, 2 and 14. So this is our way of looking at it. Initially, we'll take up 100 such villages and then further, increase the numbers. So livelihood support is a major way that we look at, and integrated modern coasting villages development will be a strategy in that. Next, please. Fishermen welfare, I was mentioning, livelihood, safety at sea. For that, a lot of efforts are being taken for ensuring that their safety is there with safety kits and equipment. We are having Sagar Mitras in all the 3,477 coastal villages. We are appointing Sagar Mitras who are basically extension workers, and also who will get all the data, will help the people in the villages. Mostly this will empower the rural unemployed youth, and this is where possible good training and capacity building is to be done. This is to be done with other stakeholders in the government. Next, please. Innovation, startup and incubation, as I mentioned, mentoring, and it is a major way that it's very innovative that way we are looking at new areas. So our thrust areas are in terms of innovations. This will help up innovations in malnutrition, for example. India being a developing country, we need to look at large number of people and see that their nutritional requirements are met. And we are looking at fish and aquaculture as a major resource for that. So we have now sea ranching as a river ranching, where variety of ways we are looking at it. Next, please. Traceability certification standards from catch to consumer, from farm to fork. So like that, we are now trying to look at it. So resource convergence with states, private sector. Then we have to look at how we can do international certification, brand development. So all these things are useful for taking it further. I will not, because we are running short of time. So let me just go to the next one. I think we can go fast. Now I'll spend a little time on exports, because this will be an important area. We are having a strategy of doubling exports. This is going to be through a variety of methods, finding new markets, deepening of existing market, collectivization of aqua park clusters. There are issues with non-tariff barriers of phytosanitary measures. So for that, we looking at traceability, certification, and standards, increasing our productivity through area expansion and technology infusion. So in a variety of ways, we are looking at it. Next, please. If you look at the numbers, we have grown in the last 10 years in a very impressive way. So currently we are doing $7 billion of exports. And if you see the numbers, and if you look at the share of capture and culture fisheries, so look at culture is in terms of value 55%. That's where aquaculture comes in a big way, and we are relying on aquaculture to improve it further. So our major objective is to double the marine product exports from 7 billion to 15 billion US dollars by 2024 by diversifying the export baskets, destination, and boosting high value and value added products. And we are looking at an institutional mechanism for pursuing market access, tackling barriers to trade, and dealing with sanitary and phytosanitary issues. So this is where we, again, this is another area of cooperation and collaboration with large number of participants in the webinar that we are having. Next, please. Now, there are a lot of required interventions that we have thought of for doubling of exports of marine products. I will not go into details of that, but attracting private investments in production and processing and a strong quality control regime backed by proper research and development is what we are looking at. And focusing on clusters and infrastructure and logistics support is what we are looking. And with a robust quarantine and laboratory network, we want to incentivize further the export of value-added products. And this is what we are looking at, by traceability and good standards, we'll ensure that the banned antibiotics are not there and these concerns are met. So this is done by zonation of aquaculture areas. And this is what we are basically looking at in a big way. Next, please. Now, I will not go into much detail, but I just wanted to tell you that what a spectacular success story has been cultured shrimp from very humble beginnings of just 75,000 tons in 8-9. Now we are looking at 6.8 lakh tons in 18-19. And this is, this has happened through the single largest commodity is the cultured shrimp. 68%, 69% is accounting for that alone. So this is what we will, this is driving the India's exports, and we wanted to make it grow further. Next, please. This is, this slide just gives you that we are looking at other species diversification other than shrimp in a big way, and looking at in addition to shrimps and prawns, tuna, mackerel, and other crustaceans and molluscs, and new species of sea bass and tilapia also in exports in a big way. And major initiative will be on value addition and also looking at ornamental fish and seaweed trade. Next, please. So I would like to now just say that we are now looking at four focus species of tilapia, pangasius, sea bass, and mud crab. And both short-term and long-term action has been taken by Department of Fisheries and along with MOPEDA. And we are looking at a variety of ways to make it happen. And this is one of the areas that we are giving a lot of attention to. Next, please. So a lot of investments have been tied up by Department of Fisheries, and we expect, because of huge investments coming up through various variety of schemes that I mentioned, and large number of stakeholders who are already tuned in, and through the entrepreneurship models that we have put in, We are incentivizing the farmers for GAP and BAPs, and the looking at aquaculture disease prevention, control and surveillance, proper hygienic handling of fish. And also we are looking at modern deep sea fishing vessels. We are now getting into production of that in a big way, upgradation of fishing vessels for export competitiveness. And this is done through cooperatives and FFPOs. That is where the present seminar for the NEDAC comes in a big way. We are looking at more of cooperatives and FFPOs coming in big way for ensuring that not only our exports grow, our production grow, our productivity grows. And that is where I'm sure that with more technology, more technical input, it will be a win-win situation for all of us. Next, please. So let me thank you, because I have taken a little more time than it was initially hoped for. But because I can see that we are doing a large number of activities across sectors, and I hope it will be useful for you in terms of information. And I'm very sure that such initiatives of these knowledge seminars are the technical webinars are very, very useful for all stakeholders, and we will benefit also a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rajiv, for your informative address. Now, may I respectfully invite Professor Dr. Kia Salim, Chairperson of Aquaculture and Aquatic Resources Management, under the School of Environment, Resources and Development, Asian Institute of Technology, to present the aquaculture and value chain. Dr. Salim, please.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for the invitation. Yeah, greetings from the aquaculture program of AIT, the Asian Institute of Technology. At the outset, I should thank Sandeep Kumar Naik ji for the kind invitation for this webinar. And I'm also deeply honored by the presence of Madam Ambassador Sujitra Durai. Thank you very much for your presence. In fact, AIT works very closely with the Indian Embassy. Madam, I think, is also is a member of the AIT's Board of Trustees. So thank you very much for your presence in this webinar. And also Dr. Rajiv Ranjan ji. He's topmost decision-making authority in the Ministry of Fisheries in India. And thank you very much for your presence. And also the distinguished members of this panel, Mr. Dora and Dr. Nakano, and my colleagues, Mr. Singh, and also Dr. Tiparat. In fact, Tiparat is a senior fish aquaculture officer of FAO, and we work together very closely. AIT and FAO have very much good professional association. So I'm very happy to see all the distinguished members present here. And for my presentation, shall I share my screen? So I think you can see the screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. In fact, I'm trying to give an overview of the aquaculture value chains and focus on the emerging technologies and innovations that we may need to depend on, especially during this changed, difficult times. So I will try to move a bit faster because I think I have more slides. So I will try to focus on wherever that needs more attention. In fact, as we all know, fish is a healthy food and is a balanced diet. And we recommend fish to be included in the diet of most people, especially because of the global food crisis that we all are aware of. And food security being a major global challenge, with the increasing population to almost 10 billion in the 2050s. And we see aquaculture as a major contributor to the food supply. And we target the aquaculture to grow to almost more than 100 million tons by 2025 from the current level of 82 million tons. Looking at the trend in the animal meat production, you can see that aquaculture or the fish production is always in a growth mode and much faster than compared to other animal proteins, especially the pork, the poultry, the sheep meat, and also the beef. So, being a healthy diet and the growth of aquaculture to produce fish is quite promising. So we are at a stage now, we produce almost 180 million tons of fish globally. That includes uh, the, the capture fisheries from the sea and also that coming from the aquaculture. And the capture fisheries, in fact, it is going steady for past several years, but for the last year, there is a slight increase. That means sustainable fisheries is improving. And the aquaculture production in fact, has been quite promisingly increasing, and we are at level 82 million tons, of which 41% are from the inland finfish, and very interestingly, aquatic plants, the seaweeds, provide almost 28%, followed by the shellfish. The shrimp in the inland and marine, the shrimps and prawns, provide about 6%. And marine finfish about 7%. So in total, we produce almost 115 million tons of fish and seaweed together. These are all FAO statistics, so I will not spend much time on this, but I want to focus that the Asian contribution is almost 89%, 89%, of which China provides a major share, it's 65%, followed by India, 10%, Indonesia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and interestingly, three non-Asian producers, the Egypt, Norway, and Chile, are also in this top list, and then Myanmar and Thailand. These are the major producers in the aquaculture sector. And the species, we all know it's carp, followed by some oysters, the shrimp, and others, and tilapia. Coming to the exports, we almost export 67 million tons in the international trade. I mean, the fish in the international trade is almost 67 million tons. But interesting thing is that almost 38% of the global fish production is exported, and only 67% is consumed locally. So this may be a thought-provoking point. So how we can improve the local consumption, which is an indicator of nutritional contribution by the fisheries and aquaculture sector. Looking at the global aquaculture value chain, these are the major segments in the value chain: the input suppliers and services, the production sector, the processing, and the marketing sector, as well as the enforcement of quality and safety of the food we produce. And all these contribute to the overall sustainable production and consumption. So breaking up more, the aquaculture sector, these are the major segments: the hatchery operators supported by the broodstock suppliers, the farmers who are the actual producers, and the trading agents who often mediate between the producers and the processors, and the processors and traders, all products coming either to the overseas or the domestic market. And all these segments are supported by a big array of agencies, suppliers, and also government and non-governmental organizations. So looking at the aquaculture production, in fact, we have both inputs and outputs. The major inputs for aquaculture production are for water, seed, and feed that goes into the culture environment and that produce the aquatic animal. But at the same time, it also creates some kind of effluence, or that is what we call the waste from the aquaculture sector, which is something we need to manage. So in this presentation, I will largely focus on the Asian or Pacific Asian scenario. The early growth stage of aquaculture, it saw a very fast development, largely focusing on the wild juveniles, the juveniles that we collect from the natural water bodies, and the feeds were natural, that is coming from the natural water bodies, and also the water quality maintenance was depending on the tidal water exchange, and there were no environmental regulations, quite obviously. But the sector has went on a path of intensification with increasing consumption, increasing production, and also most of this value addition in this aquaculture sector contributed by the shrimps, the crustaceans, particularly the shrimps, especially in the mid-1980s in China and Southeast Asia. The intensification of production is mainly brought about by major research advancements in some of the areas, especially in increasing the density of stocking, because we wanted to stock more and to harvest more. And then we may need to feed efficient feeds, nutritionally complete feeds with good feeding practices, and also maintain water quality using mechanical aeration, water exchange, water recirculation systems, the recirculation systems that Dr. Rajiv Ranjan has just mentioned, and also using probiotics. And then the most important sector that was developed recently was the genetics and health management, the use of genetically improved stocks, and the application of good aquaculture practices were really major drivers in the intensification or sustainable intensification of the sector. So with the intensification of aquaculture, a lot of issues that also came up with the increased pollution. So in that sense, we started thinking about greening the sector, and we coined different terms, the green economy, blue economy. All these were based on the 3R or 5R principles that we apply for sustainable utilization and management of aquatic resources to produce food and other services from the aquatic resources. Sustainable intensification of aquaculture is the focus brought about by FAO, and it was applied in agriculture, and later it was applied in aquaculture as well. So the focus of sustainable intensification is to use renewable inputs, integrate natural processes, and use traditional wisdom of farmers or farming community. And ultimate objective is to provide better food safety and quality for the seafood that we produce. So what are the options that are available for sustainable aquaculture? We need to really adopt different strategies, especially focused on lower energy inputs, that peeling the fish meal from the aquaculture feed, because a lot of fish meal is coming from the marine ecosystems that go into the feed that we use in aquaculture, and the application of antibiotics should have been controlled. And then the water quality maintenance is to be there without much fluctuations and no or minimal emissions that contribute to climate change. So ultimately, the objective is to have better food quality and safety and animal welfare and social benefits. So some of these technologies or practices that we can broadly adopt, I have listed. This is not a complete list, but these are some of the promising technologies or strategies that have been adopted in many parts of the world. The integrated aquaculture, the open water aquaculture, recirculating aquaculture systems, aquaponics, and IMTA, the integrated multi-trophic aquaculture systems. the biofloc technology, and also some of the emerging local initiatives like the aqua mimicry practices emerged in Thailand in the last 4 to 5 years. Now we'll look at the country-wise details. These are also taken from the FAO. You can see the Chinese production, the aquaculture production has been dramatically increasing over the past few years. But the capture fisheries has been going down. Now it is going down a bit. So a lot of controls are coming, and China is also looking forward to make the industry more sustainable because Chinese aquaculture industry is more focused on carps. Almost 44% of the aquaculture production is coming from carps. And China is also the biggest producer of shrimp. India is almost close to Chinese production. And there are also so many other features of the Chinese aquaculture industry that I would highlight a few of them. The rice fish culture that has been traditionally practiced in China, India, Vietnam, and also in Thailand. But in Thailand, you don't find much rice fish integration these days. And the fish, prawn, and crayfish have been traditionally integrated with the rice, which have been many popular in several other Asian countries as well. And the culture of carps, which is very popular in China and also in India. This is one of the Chinese pond farm for carps. The production is so huge, more than 7 tons per hectare, and this is not so intensive yet. You can see no aerators, but still the production is high. And this is another extensive aquaculture practice in China, which is done on the beach because there is no feed required because the animal used is mollusk or mussels and clams, which are natural filter feeders, and because of the natural fertilization or the inputs coming into this extensive beach areas, the mussels mollusks grow by themselves. So the production you can see is quite high, 18 tons per hectare, without any substantial investment. And again, the reservoir aquaculture in China, which produces almost 1 ton per hectare using bigger carp mainly. And there are no aerators or no feeding. And this is one of the another significant practice that can reduce the expenditure and increase the profits from aquaculture. Getting more intensive in the coastal ponds of China, producing 8 to 10 tons per hectare. This is mainly for wanami or the yellow croaker fish, which is a popular delicacy in China. You see the production 30 to 75 tons per hectare for wanami using aerators and also supplementary feeding. And these are again more industrial shrimp production systems producing white shrimp, which is 30 to 50 tons per hectare using intensive feeding and aeration. So this is again huge investment, highly capital investment investing systems and producing much more. But there are systems which are more sustainable and more extensively done in many of the less resource regions. For example, the aquaponics, which is an integration of the aquatic and the agriculture systems in the freshwater, and also the IMTA or multi-trophic aquaculture, which is kind of aquaponics in the marine system, integrating several of these key food producing segments. For example, the finfish aquaculture in the cages, you have fishes in the cages, and those fish, you feed them and they produce a lot of waste as their excreta. And those things go to the sea. And we have other segments like the seaweeds and also the mussels or the oysters which can absorb these nutrients from the waste effluents coming from the cage farms and grow by themselves. And also sea cucumbers, which is a delicacy in China and many other Southeast Asian countries. And also even worms, polychaete worms have been tried. So this is quite a good integration of various food producing segments of the aquaculture industry. This is a huge IMPA farm in China, growing seaweeds and mussels, with producing 81 tons per hectare for mussels and others like 17 tons per hectare. So these are less resource intensive but more productive systems. Coming to the Indian production, India is the third biggest producer of fish and the second aquaculture producer. Almost Indian production has doubled in the last 10 years or so to almost 12 million tons. And the current aquaculture production is 5.43 million tons. And as Dr. Rajiv presented in his speech, India has a lot of excellent and impressive schemes coming up for development of the aquaculture sector. So one of the sustainable integrated farming activity I picked up from India is the integrated rice fish farming, similar to that in China. But here, the fish is grown is mostly Indian major carps and also the Chinese carp like the grass carp, and also the giant prawn, the scampi is as called in India. You can see this farm with the nursery within the same field, and once the rice is harvested, this entire field becomes a prawn or fish farm. So this is a very promising innovation or integration that has proven quite efficient. Again, to the reservoir farming or culture-based fisheries in reservoirs, there are a lot of examples from India. This example from some of the reservoirs in Kerala province. You can see these prawns are grown for 6 months without any feed, and even to 750 grams, coming close to 1 kilogram, that can never be achieved in a pond, and without any feed provided and utilizing natural feed alone. So this is how they harvest the prawns from the reservoirs. They use gill nets and use simple devices like this inflated tire tube, so they can easily catch the prawns from the gill nets. This is quite an excellent example of the productivity of reservoir aquaculture. Coming to Bangladesh, Bangladesh is an excellent producer in recent years. They almost doubled their aquaculture production from 2.3 million tons to over 4 million tons in recent years. Again, aquaculture accounts for 56% of the production, but freshwater aquaculture. Bangladesh has a lot of potential for brackish water aquaculture as well. And major species are catfish, tilapia, and rohu. This is an example of integration of prawns and rice in Bangladesh. You can see the giant prawn is grown in the channels, and once the rice is harvested, it becomes a prawn pond producing almost 1 ton per hectare. An excellent integration. Looking at Thailand, Thailand has been a major producer or major exporter as well for several years, but you can see the aquaculture production, particularly the coastal aquaculture, has been going down over the past several years. But this is especially because of the problems with diseases or other production issues. But we can see that the production has been improved recently because of the several innovative strategies adopted in the sector, because Thailand is a highly fish eating country. There is a big demand for fish in the domestic market, and Thailand's exports are largely that of shrimps, and most of the other fish have a very good export domestic market. Shrimp production in Thailand has been very high in 2010, and Thailand was the world's largest exporter of shrimp. But by 2012, because of the diseases, particularly the AHPND or the early mortality syndrome, the production has steeply fallen. But post 2015, because of the new farming strategies adopted, the production has been going quite substantially high. You can see the transformation of Thai shrimp farms here. This was a picture I've taken almost 5 years ago, where the ponds were still cleaned up by flushing. After every crop, the waste were flushed out, and that was creating substantial environmental issues. But most of these farms have now transformed into an efficient, waste recycling systems using the center pits where they treat the waste, and then even using pond recirculation systems. So this has been a substantial improvement to improve the quantity and the quality of the Thai shrimp production in recent years. Again, the cages of tilapia. Tilapia is a major species in Thailand. You can see many cages set in the rivers across Thailand. This has been very high density, but in fact, the cage culture industry suffered huge losses in recent years, and there have been many problems, diseases, parasites, environmental issues, natural calamities, conflict of interest with other resource users, but still the cage culture industry of tilapia is surviving, and tilapia is one of the major farm produce in Thailand. And another example of cage farming in the rivers in Vietnam. Vietnam has this battery of family cages where the cages are set and the farmers live on the cages as a family, because this is a family unit with a house, floating house, and a cage where they have either tilapia or the catfish, the pangasius catfish. So this gives quite a very good convenience for the farmer to feed them and also grow the fish along with their routine life. So this is a very good example, but because of the high density, there have been a few environmental issues and that are being resolved. And the brackish water, sea bass, is very popular in Thailand. Sea bass farming is getting more intensive. And this is a view of a farm in Thailand. And again, for the recirculation systems, in fact, Asian countries may not have very good recirculation systems, unlike the Western species that are being used. But recirculation systems are being developed in Asia, and this is an example of a kind of low-cost recirculation system developed for sea bass in Chiang Mai in Thailand. So this has been done or operating quite successfully. And also let us look at Kenya, because I see Kenya is also part of the NEDAC countries. In fact, I had worked in Kenya for some time on a few projects on their aquaculture sector. And you can see the production in Kenya has been quite, falling, especially the aquaculture segment. So this is something we still have to look at, because tilapia is a major producer, and you can see the production cycle that have the brood stock coming mostly from the the Lake Victoria from the wild, and also there are hatcheries, but they all rely on the natural spawning and no much high-end technologies are applied yet. Still, there is a lot of potential for the growth of tilapia in Africa, because tilapia is an African species and it should be developed quite well in Africa. And this is a cage farming that is very popular in the Lake Victoria in Kenya and also in Uganda. This is a picture from Uganda where many farmers do this quite successfully. And one of the main problems may be the natural calamities. And otherwise, this is quite a successful example of production from the open water systems. In Philippines, Philippines has a very big industry, but you see the production is remaining almost stable for several years. 80,000 tons, 800,000 tons. Major species are milkfish, tilapia, and also the black tiger shrimp. And also significant thing is that Philippines has a big segment for aquatic plants, almost 1.48 million tons. This is quite interesting. And in Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan aquaculture is quite tiny, and most of the production is still coming from the capture fisheries. And aquaculture is mostly on the shrimps, and most of the shrimp is exported. And again, another industry is ornamental fish, especially from the marine, which contributes about 11%. So Sri Lanka has a lot of potential with the vast resources available. Segment aquaculture sector in Nepal, again, very potential country. You can see the inland aquaculture developing quite fast. And there is not much capture fisheries, but it's mostly inland capture fisheries. And the production you can see has doubled in 2017. And most of these fish are carps, especially murgal and common carp. So that is about the countries, some of the major countries in this Asian region, NEDAC. Improving the aquaculture production has always been a challenge, and we have been trying several innovative farming technologies or practices. And one of the big names that you hear is the biofloc. Dr. Rajiv Ranjan also mentioned as a major thrust area in India, because biofloc technology has been quite popular, but there have been many technical issues getting people understanding the technology and involved in the production. But if you can do it, it is an excellent technology that can really address many of the sustainability challenges, especially the pathogen risks, the product quality, and also the efficiency of production. Biofloc technology has been growing quite promising. Coming to the consumption, looking at the sustainable consumption, we have an array of infrastructure, the seafood processing infrastructure that is focused on processing and value addition of the harvested produce. And a holistic approach is the farm to fork approach, keeping the principles of quality and resource efficiency across all the segments of the value chain, including the distribution, retailing, consumption, and post-consumption. So this has been a lot of research and a lot of marketing strategies have been followed for this. Some of the examples of markets I can give, but I will rush through because of these are again based on FAO statistics and the Department of Fisheries information from Thailand. You can see the export of have been going up, but again coming down because of various reasons I mentioned. But Thailand has an excellent strategy because many of these local fishes like the Nile tilapia, catfish, sea bass, and the mackerel, they are destined for domestic consumption, while the more valuable species, more foreign exchange earning species like shrimp and tuna are mainly for export. But again, shrimp is also available for the domestic market, and whatever quantity you produce can be marketed in Thailand. That is the situation. And also Thailand is also following most of the food safety standards for ensuring quality of the produce. So this is the entire value chain with the producers, processors, and also the waste is going for fish meal industry. And Thailand is in fact one of the biggest tuna producers, tuna processors, and a lot of fish meal is produced from the tuna processing waste. This is quite, interesting and promising. And recently, a lot of interest is coming for the live marketing. Live marketing, especially for shrimp and the prawn, the giant prawn. Big markets exist in countries like China, Japan, and Korea. And we have, in fact, done several trials and for the commercial success of this technology of live transportation without water for export over a period of 24 to 36 hours. So you can ship or air freight shrimp or prawn without actually being in water, by reducing the temperature and making this animal sleep. It reduces metabolism so that the freight charges can be substantially reduced and the final quality at the end point will be excellent. In Sri Lanka, again, the markets are a bit, unbalanced. Most of the production is coming from marine fishing, and the aquaculture marketing is not so much well developed as in other parts of the Asia. And this is overall value chain analysis that I could find from one of the sources. And East Africa, because we have in fact characterized the value chain in East Africa, especially related to aquaculture. Most of the aquaculture is relied on the wild broodstock caught from the lake, and then the fish produced locally in the cages or small ponds. But the marketplace is very much complex with a lot of imported fish coming, which are small and in fact cheaper than the locally produced fish. So this is a big impact for the locally produced fish in most countries in East Africa, especially in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Rwanda. So looking at ways to look beyond the recent problems, there is a lot of interest on the species diversity in aquaculture. So in fact, how much is the diversity in our aquaculture? Because in capture fisheries, the fish that we catch from the sea, you can see there are more than 2,000 species of fish and invertebrates. But aquaculture is almost 600 species only. And this is quite not a very positive note. And most of this species is from the finfish, then mollusks, crustaceans like fish and shrimp, like shrimp, other invertebrates, and algae. There are 40 seaweed species or aquatic algae. But in fact, this is something we should really address. Even with this finfish species, only 27 species contribute to 90% of the fish aquaculture. So this is again quite narrow, and we should really expand the number of species that we can culture in Asia or in regions of Africa or other countries. So there are many strategies to improve because we need to have more genetic improvement of the species, because many of the species are not still friendly for farming, not environment friendly and not energy efficient. So we need to have specific technologies or practices which are suitable for these species. And aquaculture is also a major contributor of employment in Asia. This is the latest information from FAO, but you can see this is not very promising because most of the employment is in the primary sector, and uh, and this needs to be improved. And I have identified a few areas that aquaculture really contribute to employment in a broad sense in Asia and beyond. We have a lot of on-farm jobs in production, processing, and marketing, teaching, research, and technology-related jobs in the government, administration, production, and outreach, in the startup, production, processing, marketing, and technology. So these are all, I will talk about this again, this sector after some time. And most of these on-farm jobs are related to technology, the production, processing, and also marketing. So these sectors have, huge, potential for providing jobs for people. And there are also academia-related jobs in teaching, research, and technology. Research, particularly nutrition, we still don't know many of these fine nutritional aspects for shrimp or fish. And then there are feed milling business is a larger business with good demand for feed formulators, feed consultants, and emerging technologies in the nutrition like functional feeds, probiotics application in the aquaculture sector. And another thing is the pharmacological experts. We don't really have many number of pharmacology experts because diseases are getting a major threat to aquaculture, and we really need more expertise in health management. So earlier, many of our aquaculture activities were prone to diseases, but now we still have some control. But anyway, new diseases are emerging, and still we have been developing vaccines for a few common diseases, and many of these technologies are emerging. There are also potential for alternative energy and satellite technologies, which can be applied in the case of aquaculture. And the use of alternative energy sources like solar, wind, wave energy, and their integration into the production systems. Also the geographical information systems, remote sensing, zoning for aquaculture, modeling, and pollution research. All these are, very emerging applications in the aquaculture sector. So there are so many other segments where people find employment in the sector. And this is very important, the business and entrepreneurship, because many of these, self-employment is happening now in the aquaculture sector, especially the emergence of several new startups and also big corporates. For example, one of the largest privately owned company in the US is Cargill, which is an agriculture giant with a huge stake in seafood business. And again, the CP, the aquaculture, which is a big company largely based on agriculture. So the potential for agriculture or aquaculture to become, global corporate conglomerates is so high. So that signifies the potential of the sector. And coming back to the diversification, we really need to look at the other species than the most commonly farmed fish that we can focus on. Especially these are oysters, mussels, scallops, and other mollusks, wherever there is a market demand for this. And also the aquatic algae, the aquatic plants, for which you can see the production has been remarkably growing in the past 4 to 5 years. And most of this production, but in fact, coming from a few pockets in the Asian region, particularly China, Indonesia, Korea, Philippines, in Japan, Malaysia, Zanzibar, Chile, Vietnam and other countries, which is almost contributing 32.4 million tons, which is quite remarkable. And in fact, the seaweed or aquatic algal farming also has another uh, benefit in terms of climate change impact. So this is again an interesting species group that we have to diversify. This is one of the biggest uh, activity in Philippines, where they grow seaweeds and contributing to the sustainable livelihood of women, just in the same way as Dr. Rajiv Ranjan mentioned in India. I know a few projects have been operation in the province of Tamil Nadu with the red seaweeds cultivation in the coastal areas. So this is a very good sustainable activity for women to in the sector. And the women participation, in fact, is not very much in the sector, in the production sector, but mostly in the marketing. This is a picture from Andhra Pradesh in India, where they mostly women are involved in trading, in pre-processing at the farm site, and then marketing it in the local market. So the sustainable consumption is also dependent on the quality, the enforcement of quality. As we all know, certification standards and also traceability standards are quite widespread these days because of the market segments. And one of the most sustainable production practice has been the organic production. Organic rice prawn farming has been, we have done it in Kerala, in India, for almost 4 years. It is led by the Marine Products Export Development Authority. And this farming practice has been quite promising, and we found that it is almost 20% more profitable when we combine rice and prawn together, both in an organic way. It was certified and it was marketed in the at a premium price. Again, similar examples are from Vietnam, where the mangrove shrimp farming more promising to combat climate change, to sequester carbon from the organic farms. So these are quite promising examples that aquaculture can be a promising alternative for mitigating climate change as well. Currently, our organic black tiger shrimp project is underway in West Bengal in India, which is very much going on successfully with public and private participation. And this has been, many of the traditional shrimp farms have been transformed into organic shrimp farms, which is for the black tiger shrimp. And there are also hatcheries certified for producing seed of the black tiger shrimp. There are many constraints for this certification and quality assurance, because this may be a problem for many small-scale farmers, because they have an inherent advantage, because the certification requirements are very rigorous, and also the standards are mostly for high-value species with a premium market in the Western markets. So this is a major setback for many smallholder farmers. And then what could be an alternative for smallholder farmers? So they have a lot of challenges because they are not in a level playing field. They play with big, big producers where they cannot market, and then what can they do? They have to come together. So that is the main advantage of the farmer cooperatives, which NEDAC is also pioneering. This network is really essential for the smallholder farmers to come together and negotiate for their production. I have an example of a successful farmer cooperative in Thailand. This is for production of white shrimp. This is a cluster in the two provinces For example, the one in Samrayot, Pranburi, in the Prachuapkhirkan province, and another one in the Nakhon Naik. These two clusters have been functioning quite remarkably well for the past several years. They have, in fact, transformed themselves into sustainable production. And the big farms, you can see they're very highly intensive farms, and they have been quite remarkably transformed. And this is an example of how do they function. This the cooperative in Pranburi, Samrayot province, was established in 2008 with 52 members, and now it has 285 members. And Mr. Desha is a very pioneering farmer who is a lot of experience and who is leading this farmer cooperative. And his farm is a model farm. This is his farm, which is a model farm for many of the sustainable farming activities in his province. So anybody who can take stocks with minimum 200 stocks can be a member with a very nominal registration fee of 120 baht. And there are a lot of benefits. The annual benefit, at least 10% of the net profit will be divided among all the members. And they can have lifelong memberships, and working together in this group, they promote the best culture practices in the whole province. This is a major advantage. And they also have options for crisis management, especially in times of pandemic or other natural disasters. The cooperative will provide an interest-free loan of up to 250,000 Thai baht in times of crisis, and which they can return after the crop is harvested. So this is a very good, successful, sustainable example of a cooperative existing in the shrimp farming sector, which could be a model for many other regions. And finally, I will also touch upon emerging technologies that have great applications in the aquaculture sector, particularly the IoTs, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and also the application of robots or drones or marketing tools, supply chain tools like the blockchains. This has been coming quite promising these days. In fact, there is also a blockchain company registered, the Fish Coin, and many of these commodity transactions could be more efficient by the application of blockchain technologies. And the IoT is the Internet of Things. It is again, you can see such a impressive growth in the past 10 years, or rather 5 years. We have at least 50 companies around the globe who are involved in this IoTs, especially focused on aquaculture, and have so much of applications integrating with artificial intelligence. It is used for many applications in the aquaculture production process, in the counting, in feeding, minimizing wastage in feeding, reducing the cost up to over 20%, disease prevention, and also, facilitate environment-friendly systems. So this is quite remarkable, and the full growth is yet to come. Again, these are some of these 3D printing or underwater drones, which really facilitate many of the production processes. For example, the 3D ponics, where you can actually print an aquaponic system. You design it and ask the printer, you print the aquaponic system. Quite remarkable. So these are the kind of technologies that are emerging. And again, the robotic fish, I think this is not new. This has been there for almost 10 years before. And this is developed at the MIT earlier. And this has got a lot of applications in the aquaculture and as well. So how the future fish farms will look like. So the future for the bigger fish farms is, it will look like it is mostly unmanned. It will be mostly controlled remotely. Sitting at your home, you can control the routine day-to-day activities at the farm. And most of this management practices and security, everything will be done by drones or robots or the artificial intelligence that we talk about. These are aquapod. These are kind of aquapods that you place in the sea and just forget, and you can produce massively from these kind of systems. That is the predicted future of the aquaculture systems. So I would like to conclude that aquaculture is the fastest growing food production sector, as we all know, and this will continue to do so because the growth has been quite impressive in these days. And with the success of the emerging technologies that we see, aquaculture is set to grow very well in the immediate future. And we have setbacks. The COVID-19, I really did not want to name COVID-19 because I want to forget that name. But pandemics may come, and aquaculture and seafood industry has an inherent resilience. So as we have seen it, aquaculture has not been very hardly hit except in the first few weeks or months, because there was largely a confusion, or we are not sure what is going to happen. And there have been huge setbacks in the production process, and farmers had to stock up their production. And in fact, there was a sad story in Thailand where one of the biggest farmers had to dump all his sea bass produced into a compost pit. So this was quite sad scene to witness. But I think we have come out crisis and accept the production setbacks we had earlier. I think the future is promising with all the new emerging technologies in supply chain, and also the potential of technologies in production. The aquaculture production is going to increase, and also one of the major positives from this crisis is that the domestic consumption is set to increase. So more than export, people will start eating fish at home rather than exporting it. And the online marketing that has developed, all these technologies will really make an impressive future for aquaculture. And I would like to finish this presentation with this photo I had taken almost 6 years before. This is a typical Thai shrimp farm. It's a small scale farm, but you can see an entire family can live with 1 pond or 2 ponds. So it's their entire livelihood. They produce here, they live here, and they market in the local parlance, either fresh or either live. So this is quite a promising, this picture shows a quite promising picture for aquaculture, promising future for aquaculture in Asia and region and beyond. So thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Salim, for your excellent presentation. To proceed with the next agenda, may I respectfully invite Mr. Boku Nakano, Chief Quality Assurance of Corp Trade Japan Limited, to present the marine food trade. Mr. Nakano, please.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear clearly.
Okay, good. Well, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Nakano, you are very much audible. Welcome, welcome,
Okay.
please.
Good. And I'd like to say Dr. Salim. There was a great presentations, and I have known some of the these farm and ponds I have visited before. Well, anyway, and thank you for thank you, Miss Tain, and for this seminars. And I like to express my special thanks to Mr. Nayak, who made this presentation possible for today. And it's because I am here and I'm making the presentation. So I'd like to start with the presentation with my PowerPoint. Can you put on the screen? Okay, good. Well, since my time is quite limited, I like to skip some of the slides, and I like to start with the title of the quality issues and marine foods trade, because since all the presentations being based on aquaculture production side, I like to give some information from the consumer side, since we are consumer cooperatives in Japan, and Co-op Trade Japan Limited is the affiliate of the Japanese Consumers Cooperative Union, JCCU. So next slide, please. Okay, just briefly about the JCCU. We have our main business is retail sales, and which carries most of them are foods. And there are some foods directly imported by JCCU, not purchased from the domestic markets. So next one, please. So this is the total sales, the 3.5 billion US dollars. And the next. And we do import directly, the JCCU directly buy from the producers, factories from overseas, which covers 93 million US dollars. And among this, next one, please. The marine products covers about 42 million US dollars. And next, please. Yeah, among these are the popular items. You can see the left-hand side, that's fried shrimp, breaded shrimp. And the right one is a garbage bag, the plastic bag from China. And the next, please. And some are from chicken from Thailand. And right-hand side is the pizza, different shape of the pizza from Italy. Those are the popular items, what we sell in Japan. The next, please. So this is just a sales trend. This is in Japanese yen. And the last year, year 2018 was almost 10 billion yen, Japanese yen. And next, please. So it's just a breakdown of the products we buy from other, we import directly. So 30% of all the products imported by JCCU are the marine products. The next, please. And as I said, that's the shrimp. And the region, the most of the 55% comes from the Southeast Asia. The next, please. It's just the containers, and 70% the frozen refund containers. Next, please. So let us see how the products are produced and shipped. As we saw, we know the order from the presentations of all the participants. The marine products are produced. So we like to see the other aspect. And next, please. So that all the products are raised and produced and packed at the factories in the right-hand side, then to put into the container and the vessel to send to the other countries and to the Japan. But there is something that we have to go through it. And next, please. And next, please. So the older products must the Japanese custom clearance requirements and some of the testing, and there are some requirements. And if they say no, if they cannot allow those products to be imported into Japan, that will be they have the special website, and they put the violation of the Food Sanitation Act, and which you can visit, and which company, which factories have some violations. So next, please. These are just an example. If you visit the website, you can check all this. Next, please. So that the Japanese government, the custom and quarantines, and they require several type of the inspections. And for JCCU, as a representative of the consumers, we also put another safety quality requirements, and we do the additional testing. So let's see what are the testing. Next, please. It's just a mandatory inspections for the importing. I don't go for the details because it's quite, I need some other days. So these are the inspections and the testing required to import the products to Japan. And next, please. And these are just an example. And JCCU, other than these inspections and testing done by the government, JCCU do the internal inspections and testing, which covers like TPC, total plate counts, and antibiotics, and sometimes a wage check, and all these kind of the quality checks. And next, please. And since we sell our products to our consumers, we of course received some of the complaints. And these are the number of complaints we receive every year. So the year 2015, more than 22,000 complaints we received one year. So, there are 350 days in 1 year. So we received almost 150, 200 complaints per day. Okay, next, please. And among those complaints, the 34% are the foreign materials. And these are the problems which cause the complaints. These are microorganisms. And these kind of things we also check at the factory and also the time of the importing. Next, please. So besides all these checks done by government and JCCU, we have a staff. We have offices in all over the world, and our staff constantly visit the factory manufacturers and also the farmers or shrimp farms, ponds, those production sites. And next, please. That is, to ensure the products and those raw materials, ingredients, and also the packaging materials. That's quite important for our consumers, and they are to make sure that those are the comfort to the specifications and required by the Japanese laws and as well as the JCCU, the standards. Next, please. So these are the offices we have, one in US and China, Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, Bangkok, Thailand, and Singapore. Singapore covers the Indonesia, most of the Indonesia factories and the methods. And we also have one in Italy, the Bologna. And next, please. And these are the most of the products we import to Japan. We deal with the shrimp. So these are just the photos of the factories. Next. And our staff visit the factories and, every time they check the productions. So that's about it. And the other aspect, we do have the SDGs. That's, set by the United Nations. We follow this, we try to follow these rules to our products we import and sell to our customers. And next, please. And that's just an example. MSC, Marine Stewardship Council, and these products you can see in the picture and the letters. Those are the mackerels, the cod roll, and surimi, fish surimi. And next, please. ASC, Aquaculture Stewardship Council. As I said, that the most products we buy import directly the shrimps. So the breaded shrimps and also the salmons as well. Next, please. Well, that's it. Well, thank you. Thank you for your attention and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nakano, for your tremendous presentations. As per next agenda, may I respectfully invite Dr. R.R. Singh, Assistant Vice President from CP Food, to present the shrimp processing. Dr. Singh, please.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Is the screen visible now? Is the screen visible?
No, not yet.
Yes.
Not yet? Please. Can I start? Is it visible now?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Rajkumar Singh, taking care of the technical division for the shrimp in CPF India. So at the outset, I'd like to thank Chairman NEDAC, Mr. Sandeep Nayak, for inviting us for this presentation. And I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Excellency Ambassador Madam Suchita Durai, who was here giving us a good introduction, and Dr. Ravi Rajan the Federal Secretary, Department of Fisheries, India. I send my greetings to all the distinguished dignitaries and the presenters before me. So I'd like to start with the presentation. So these are the 5 topics I'd like to share with all of you. And if you just see in the time constraint which I was given, maybe some things I'll have to rush through. But surely India has a big coastline. If you see the shrimp culture area is all over from Gujarat up to the West Bengal coast. It's already given an outline in the previous presentation. So there's a potential of around 170,000 hectares. But last year, from our estimates, we think it's around half of that was only active. So there's a huge potential for us to still grow, just horizontally, let alone because we were discussing about some places where it was also increasing vertically. So if you see the contribution to different divisions or as such, like the East and the South contributing almost 80% to this sector. And the production in India has been a spectacular growth curve until last year, where we think it's got something of a glitch now. And for 2020, many estimates from the industry are telling us that there might be a drop. Surely we can see because we have a big problem with the lockdown and we were unable to do all the activities. So surely that quarter of backlog is going to affect us. But the performance what we have seen for the first half of the year, it looks really encouraging. And the other half, I think we can cope up much faster. So the opportunities, like some of the presenters have already told, it's huge. There are many stakeholders here, but there are 4 major contributors to this sector, namely the farmers or the farming community, the hatchery units, the processing plants and feed mills. So all put together make up this industry up and running. Not only that, we do have some allied industries, especially for the healthcare products, the chemical suppliers, the peeling sheds, all these also giving their contribution to run this industry up and running. So we do have some indirect contributors, especially in terms of the electricity generators and other mechanics who are involved in running this industry smoothly. So giving you a background, why there was a little bit of glitch in this production cycle which we saw last year. So the major reason we found out was the issue with the emerging diseases, especially the EHP and the continuance of the WSSP. Maybe there are many countries reporting EMS and the decapod iridescent virus also. There is a very good chance that can be spread. It's zoonotic, so it can spread over. The other thing is with the sustainability, the model which we presently are running the show seems to have an inherent problem, especially on how well we manage the farm with the output, the water which is in the form of effluent, and how it's getting reintroduced into the system. This model looks very unhealthy. So there needs to be a shift wherein we can address all those issues and make it a success story to move forward. Surely, when it comes to food safety and traceability, we need to do a lot more, especially for the product quality and quantity, because we have operations spanning many countries, and when we compare ourselves with the benchmarks we have set, India needs to do a lot, especially for the food safety and traceability issue. But addressing all this, surely we need to differentiate ourselves. So India has to get a right culture model so that these the improvement in the production will be addressed along with taking care of the problems which you have just mentioned. So going through this and based on our experience, we think the way ahead will be to find the reliable way out, which is implementable and people can get it done. So in that way, we want to be a solution provider to whatever problems we are facing. And surely we are now focusing on the three best principles like solution, quality, and service to come out of this glitch which we have. So shrimp culture as such, if you see, it's an integrated business, so you just can't neglect one particular sector and still get a very good product. No, it needs the contribution and cooperation of all four sectors. So you need to have the hatchery, feed, farming, as well as the processing, all working together in unison. But on this, I would like to focus more particularly on the farm sector, because farming is largely unorganized. We have many uneducated farmers because it's a livelihood for them. It's not as a business they do. So we need to help them come out, understand the concepts. So they are the major stakeholder, but the weakest link in the entire structure. So any model which we are going to promote or help them, it has to be profitable as well as eco-friendly. So taking into consideration of all this and the problems we are faced, we think broadly we have certain issues which needs to be addressed, starting with the seed quality as well as the quantity which we are stocking. We know in India, as per the regulatory authorities we have a cap of around stocking 60 pieces per meter square as the density for us. So based on that, how well will a farmer be able to get it done? Because 60 pieces per density also we think needs a lot of inputs, which the farmer community as of now is unable to do to the best of his ability. Surely we can have a better stocking system wherein we can improve the immediate survival for the farmer, especially during, we have a crop duration of around somewhere between 90 to 120 days as the crop duration. So you can just see by improving the stocking method, his survival is going to improve at least by 5 to 10%. It needs a lot for his profitability. And not only that, once we know that we are stocking the healthy and the active seeds, so surely the survival estimate and the feed rationing can be done more accurately. Not only that, we also have to think about how to have a clean environment, because finally, as the situation stands now, we are a major export-based country, so around 92 to 95% of the production is being exported. So we surely need to have a condition where our product is clean, safe, and surely following the eco-friendly practices. We are now getting into the realm of reuse of water material to avoid or at least minimize the pollution, which many of my previous speakers had also mentioned. So for the effluent treatment or the management, we also think that concepts such as batch stocking, the concept of the sludge pond or a sediment pond, all these needs to be looked into actively and should be in the executed phase also. So surely you need to have a better crop, giving you more material per ton of water, so the maximum utilization of material, manpower, and the market seems to be the way out. So for this, from our side, we have this CPF Smart Farm concept, wherein we have the 3C as well as the nursery. The nursery concept is just to tide over the 30 to 50 day period when most of the WSSP disease occurrence has been reported. So for the nursery, when we have an enclosed small environment which is concise and environmentally stable, we are able to avoid many of the problems. as well as have a healthy check at a regular basis so that we know what is the condition of the juvenile which is being shifted. And in the farm, we have the clean pond, like the previous picture I told how in Thailand the pond system was altered, and now they have a waste accumulation point or something called, we call it as a shrimp toilet or a sludge pit inside the pond. And surely if that has to happen, the pond size also matters. In India, we are still having an average pond size of about 0.55 to 0.6. That's the average pond size in India. So that needs to be addressed, because we have a big issue of accumulating the waste to the center in very large ponds. So the ideal farm size, which we think from our experience, especially from what we have seen in the eastern states of West Bengal and Orissa, as well as in few pockets in Gujarat, a 1 acre size pond should be the bigger extent. If it is smaller, it's a lot better, and we have a better production and productivity from such. And we also talk about the clean seed. So when you think of nursery, not only you're buying and you're holding it for a month or 45 days. So again, you will be able to judge the seed by its performance, even for that 30 to 45 day period. And based on that, you can shift it. Surely water is the key. So getting the best quality water needs a certain restructuring of the farm, because we have multiple water sources. In some areas using seawater, some areas using the canal water, some areas are inland, and some areas also using underground water. So all these have a different profile. So based on that profile, we need to work out on how well will the water system be, which will help the farmer come out. And surely all this setup is to be in a 100% biosecure environment, so that we will reduce the loss for the customer, because he is the weak link. Anything wrong goes there and he will disrupt the entire cycle. And surely farming based on scientific principles and the probiotic program is the way out. So going into the environmental aspect, we also think that hatchery division has been a major contributor also, because most of the seed travels from an area to another by plastic bags. So maybe for the long distance, it might be unavoidable, but for the short distance farm in coast of Tamil Nadu and Andhra, as well as in Orissa, we have now thought of this concept of where we can transport the seed in reusable styrofoam boxes, wherein the seed comes with an excellent aeration system. So there's minimum stress, and your quality of shrimp at the stocking point or the delivery point is as good as what it was in the hatchery tank. So not only that, you can also see that here in the here in this particular photo, you are seeing the acclimatization process which is happening. That happens every time when the water quality between the farm as well as hatchery has a wide variation. So not only you bring the seed in an environment-friendly box, but you also allow the seed to get acclimatized by increasing the volume in your particular stocking tank. So for us, this particular box carries around 100 liters of water, which is put in a 500-liter tank or a 1,000-liter tank, wherein it's acclimatized. Even the stress, the mild stress which is there, will be overcome in this particular system, and then it's released into the pond. So you are releasing the most healthy and active animals which you have got from the hatchery into the pond system. So this is going to help a lot in the survival aspect for the customer. Not only that, we have also come up with the nursery model, wherein most of the trouble the customer will be able to overcome by having this 30-day period in a concise small tank. If you see, this tank capacity ranges from anywhere between 50 tons to up to 300 tons. So we are able to stock pieces per liter, just like what the hatchery people do. And we are able to grow it to a size of around 0.3 to 0.5, depending on the water source and the density which you have stocked. And after this, we are shifting the animals to the grow-out ponds. So here again, for us, as of now, the grow-out ponds are somewhere between 1 acre to 1 hectare, and the density we are stocking is around 40 to 60 here. We have a continuous harvesting system, especially where if we are in the 60 piece density belt, we do recommend partial harvesting. But when we do this process, what we find is farmers are able to have something called the compensatory growth, wherein from a small environment, the animal goes to a bigger environment and they grow very, very fast. In fact, our analysis shows that the average ADG for Indian system happens to be somewhere between 0.17 to 0.2 ADG. From that, we are able to reach 3 to 3.33 ADG. From 0.3 to 0.33 ADG is what we are able to get in this nursery shifted model. So I think it gives a farmer a very good hope and chance about having a better yield. Not only that, this nursery system also solves much of a problem which we have faced for the last 2 years, especially when the processing people, they buy the material, they end up with this huge size variation. So the farmer does the sampling and he says that X is this count, but that correct count we were able to match only 50% of his stock in that harvest, and the remaining being either oversized or undersized. So this gives a big problem on hand for the processing plant because they work based on their orders and they're buying accordingly. So when the efficiencies come into place, this is going to give a big issue to the processing plant. So there is where we thought this nursery model is helping them, because once you know what is the size in the nursery, you can able to sort out the stock. You just select the bigger stock, put it in one pond, the smaller size animals go to another pond, wherein we are able to mitigate the size variation problem to a large extent. So there's what this helps, and surely the nursery system also works very well as a biosecurity point of view for the farmer. Not only that, the culture model, we are doing it. We are now the #1 exporter for shrimp in India. So the culture aspect, I think many of the customers understand the nuances very well. But when it comes to the harvesting and post-harvesting, still we are lagging behind, because there's been a huge explosion of farms all around. And we have this harvesting activity which is becoming almost everyday affair in the southern states. So we are pushing things to a limit where we do this open harvesting, and that's reducing our shrimp quality a lot. And when we compare ourselves with how other countries, or in fact other states in India also do, I think there's a lot desirable, because we find that buyers are now very insisting upon the looks, the color of the shrimp also matters a lot for them. So the better meat quality always is a matter. And when we are in this open harvesting system, that there's a lot to be desired. We need to address that issue a lot. Going from the harvesting to the export segment, surely we have to think a lot. Our export basket looks very limited, especially if you see the figures for last year. We are focusing on 2 main countries for almost 66% of our export, and we very well know that the geopolitical ramifications of this is going to disrupt much of the export sector for us. So we need to spread the export basket much beyond what's there now. And surely for the value addition part, because we are competing with multiple countries with the shrimp sector. So we are stuck with this PD, PDTO, and easy peel as the value addition product, but the next level happens to be for the cook and breaded. So how well we can address that, because harvesting and post-harvesting technology becomes very critical when you're going for more amount of value addition. So there comes into picture the live harvest. So for a normal harvest, we already have issues to be addressed. So if it's going to be a live harvest protocol to follow, then we need to develop much more infrastructure to address that particular issue. Not only that, for the retail sector, if you see, skilled labor is an issue, not only because of the lockdown, even before that. We understood that the state of Kerala provides the best skilled labor for value addition in the streams. So that must be used as a tool to improve the skilled labor all around the country, so that it makes sense for everyone to start doing the value addition part. And I have already told you about the harvesting and post-harvest. And just to add, because we want to add more value, and value not only in the export segment, it's also comes from the domestic sector. So we did have a trial, especially for the southern states. We wanted to start doing this, and we first were hit with the perception of how the consumers are reacting to shrimp as a product, especially in the interior parts of even a southern state. So we have to deal with the changing the perception of shrimp. And many people were unaware of this. So that feedback, what we got, we have incorporated into the domestic sales strategy, some things which I would like to we first introduced with the tie-up with another CP franchisee calling for the poultry division. We are the CP Agro. So there we try to introduce this product of shrimp popcorn as a side dish for their primary product, being the poultry products. But the end result was that people were more comfortable eating shrimps which were focused on the palate for the Indians. So they were asking for garlic prawns or for prawn with fried rice, in curry, and even in the noodles there was a demand. So now we are thinking, we are already introducing these garlic prawns for the customers locally in the domestic sector. But these are all the things which we need to think, develop, so that we will be having a much broader view of how to get this industry up and running and going very fast. So coming to the conclusion part, so if you see many people, many of the previous presenters were talking about this. So certification and auditing will be the norm. So as long as we're planning to keep exporting and improve that part of the story, so certification and auditing will be the norm. Like previous speakers told, small farmer will have a tough time getting this done. But anyway, from our side, we are trying to make a small model so that even a farmer with 1 hectare pond should be able to get all the systems in place. So that's where we are venturing out, and we will be trying models. Once it's giving us the result, I think we will be able to spread that information much faster to everyone, every stakeholder there. And the consumerism will demand higher levels of compliance, especially for the food safety and traceability. So we need to address that. Maybe the open system, which we are now doing, will be the the deadlock point, because it's not accepted to run the show this way. And surely demand will be the deciding factor for the price, and the domestic markets will be the one which is going to help us mitigate this shock for a large extent. When we started, we were just seeing the quantities, very mere quantities being taken up, but with just 6 months down the picture, we are now able to increase our volume by almost 100 to 200% month-on-month basis. And surely for the farming side, if you see the cost of production and improving the efficiency for the farm operation is the key. Because until the farmer will not be able to do it the right way, we will not be able to get the best product out, which the processing will utilize to go for their value addition. Because once you need to think about value addition, your product quality on farm gate quality matters a lot. So we from CP think that it needs to be a holistic approach. wherein the farmer understands his contribution to this sector and will give the best product to the processing. So the take-home message, like I told, is we need a holistic approach. So all 4 branches have to work, and to get a great value for the final product, hatcheries must think about the seed genetics. It plays a major role for the farming side. They have to stick on to this probiotic farming management, wherein it's more sustainable as well as highly productive. And the feed manufacturers, especially with respect to their quality and the inputs which they are using, when they go in for the certification, everything matters, especially for the BMPs and BAPs, which are now becoming the norm. And the timing is everything when it comes to the post-harvest management. So how well, how quickly we are able to do finish, that's very, very critical for the processing side. So when it comes to the quality issue, consistency, looks, and branding, all 3 will have to work together so that we will be adding more and more value, and we get the best out of the entire sector from this. So with that, I take this opportunity to thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity, and I'll conclude with this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sen, for your excellent presentation. Now, may I respectfully invite Dr. Tiparet Pontana Panich, Aquaculture Officer, Food and Agriculture Organization, Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, Bangkok, to present the capacity development perspective. Dr. Tiparet, please.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar and the other speakers and other presentation to give a foundation for my presentation. Today I will take around, let's see. Can you see my PowerPoint?
No, we cannot see.
No? Share. Can you?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. Now my presentation will focus on strengthening the entrepreneurship of small aquaculture producers. I have some example of a case study we conducted a few years ago in the Philippines and would like to share with the audience. The highlights of my presentation here, I would like to focus on how do we strengthen the capacity of small-scale producers who are the main farmers and producers in the aquaculture value chain. And that most of them are vulnerable to many kind of risks in production and market risks. And for them, aquaculture is a big venture for them because aquaculture is considering as a business, and it requires high capital, and also the business in nature has a high risk. So therefore, it would be good for the whole value chain actors if we can really strengthen their capacity to deliver good material and very efficient and very profitable. Therefore, it will improve their livelihood. And we can see that aquaculture is really a sector that can really provide good livelihood for small farmers and small producers, especially women. In developing the sustainable value chain, I have a few keywords here. Highlight on inclusiveness, which allow us to engage small producers. Then we can see how this aquaculture can benefit more to from their participation, active participation, and farmers being engaged and being organized that will strengthen their negotiation, and they can attain economy of scale and access to market and better support services. For the upgrading, how can we improve the way they do farm from traditional farmers to aquaculture entrepreneur or smart farmer, you may call. Capacity building of the association on technical, professional, and also management skills. And of course, we need support from all other stakeholders and government to build up enabling environment and establishment of institutional, legal, and policy framework in many aspects. Aquaculture or value chain development actually is to improve the business linkages across the chain to increase performance and competitiveness of the actors along the chain, because the performance of one actor is affected by the actions of the others, which result in either a good or bad performance of the entire chain. The benefit from developing an inclusive value chain for small farmers and processors, this will increase their income, secure linkages to market, and access to new services to aid production. For processor, improve quality and flow of raw material from farm and reduce transaction costs. For trader, they will have reliable supply of product and higher quality of products. For the government, it obviously will reduce regulatory burden, compensation or subsidies, and also generate the income tax for the government. Here, I would like to raise a case study of a small women group in the Philippines who were fish farmers, and later on they upgrade their business, become processors. They started in 1989 with 5 pioneer leaders and 15 members. Later on, 2017, they had 120 active members, including 2 men, and then they started modernize their business. When they just started in 1989, they had a half-hectare communal farm association. They are not cooperative, but they are groups, women group promoted by the government. They have nursing milk fish, fry, then growing them to table size, and then they sold fresh harvest around their neighborhood. From farming, they ventured into small-scale processing of traditional product form. That means the deboned milkfish and marinated milkfish. These are 2 main products of the Philippines. After 10 years, in 1998, they had a brand known already called Big Seafood Products. Increased output, more product forms, and expanded the market. And they saw, later on, they sourced fresh fish, their material from suppliers, from the alliance, instead of rely 100% from their farm. They also get their suppliers. Actually, they build up their trust suppliers that they can rely on in terms of quality and credit. Their path to building entrepreneurial capacity is started from organized for managing the association, and this is an example of the organizational chart. And then they organized for production, processing, and product promotion. They have 13 supervisors that will supervise each product line or product forms. Their product include all part of fish, from head and bone and meat. They use all part of fish. For example, they have even fish bone produced like candies made from bone that contain high calcium candies. and even the head, because of Filipino, they also like to cook soup from the fish head, and the meat or the entire whole fish can be marinated or fermented or dyed product form. All together, traditional product form became 13 product forms supervised by 13 women as supervisor, and they have regular training. This cannot be done without a very strong institutional support services from many departments have been helping them, and gradually they now can support themselves. This not only government but also support from university, College of Fishery in Pangasinan State University. This is a nearby university college, and also the public mass media. For example, for the technological and extension, they can support mainly from the Fishery Bureau on the food management practices in fish farming, processing, packaging, labeling, and entrepreneurship. From the Department of Trade and Industry, they ensure fair competition under the MSME, Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development Program. The government provides processing facilities, and also from the provincial government, they also provide strong support, so-called livelihood assistance program for the operational loan to this group. For education and skill development, the support provided by Department of Labor's Technology, Education, and Skill Development Authority that regularly provide them training on the management, operation, health, sanitation, and food safety aspect. Product development and promotion and marketing also support by Department of Trade, and also nearby College of Fishery tested the association new product. For the legal matter, the Fishery Bureau, as a department and regulatory agency, require and issue several certifications for farming and processing. For public information, the association's awards of recognition published by government agencies supporting them. The national magazine also featured their success stories of enterprise, and also mass media also featured the achievement of the organization of smallholders. These are some examples of the participation in many trade fairs. We can see that from the beginning, they started from small, very primitive, traditional startup, and today they have their own expanded processing plants and well-trained staff with hygienic and food safety protocol. Their achievement and impacts can be categorized in three main groups. On member and family welfare and entrepreneurship, they got people in the they employ people in the village, mostly women, part-time employment. They gain additional income. They work with the group, deboning, processing, and also do the marketing. And they were provided with also the health insurance benefit. The entrepreneurship training also provide them more skill on the business, on how to start a home-based business. So that means when they learn a lot from the group, they can also build up, each woman can build up their own business at a home-based scale. And also strengthen work value in ethical behavior as association member and in business relationship. For additional business opportunity, they increase demand for raw material as they rely on, now they cannot just rely on their farm input, they also rely on their trust partner, suppliers. including the condiment business, the salt and all the condiment that they use for processing. So they need to build up their linkages with their trust partner to provide them with the quality input for the processing, and more better quality and reliable supply of product for trading partners and in market. They now have supplied their processed product to hospital, to school, and also restaurant. And now they're looking for where they can do the export. On the community and employment and rural development, this example totally clear to the community that they provide so-called home of brick processed new fish, which is also not only promote the product itself, but also extend to promote the agro-tourism to the community. People come to learn from them, and they demonstrate their farm and their processing, and they all the visitors also buy the product from them. Farm provides seasonal employment to farm workers who are from the community. And now come to the last slide. That what I have been working on since started in Rome. I just moved from Rome headquarters to Bangkok a few months ago. This work will be probably finished by very soon this year. I've been trying to develop a manual, training manual, which might be useful for NEDAC or other partners who might want to deliver a training in this area of work. The material, the training manual and material been developing will be allowed the concept of the value chain, and also one more module will be on good aquaculture management practices, because they need to provide good and high quality material and comply to all the standards, and also how to utilize the fish and process high standard of aquaculture product. We would like also to train our small farmers to be entrepreneur and good at business planning and also financial planning, to become a more entrepreneur rather than just doing farm as a traditional practices. I think that's all for me, and thank you very much. I have to leave because I have another meeting coming. If you may have some question, I can take maybe 2 questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tiparet, for your excellent presentation. Now, I would like to invite Dr. R.N. Gopal to moderate the question and answer session. Dr. R.N. Gopal.
Hello. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank all the speakers for wonderful and very informative presentation. We have received a huge response to this webinar, and very interesting questions and queries have been received from many participants. However, we may not able to take all the questions due to time constraint, but I would not like to miss this some important questions. First question that I want to ask, that cooperatives in the NEDAC region play a major role in fish production, but have minimum or no role in global value chain. In view of this, what steps can be suggested to develop the fisheries cooperative business enterprises in aquaculture and its value chain? Dr. Salin? Professor Salin?
Yeah, thank you. I think Dr. Tiparat wants to leave. Dr. Tiparat, can you take that question, please?
Yes, which one? Can you read the question to me? I cannot see.
Cooperatives in the NEDAC region play a very important role in fish production. As you, Dr. Salim told, almost 90%. But we have minimum or no role in the global value chain. So in view of this, what steps can be suggested to develop the fishery cooperative as a business model in aquaculture in its value chain? How to develop these cooperatives?
Maybe I cannot answer precisely if it should be cooperative or not, but for my example of the BRIC, they are a group of women, the so-called association. Maybe if they just started from a group of people that have the same interest and have some passion to move up the business. And for those who are already become farmers cooperative, they might need to share their passion if we really move on to improve the value chain and try to link with other partners. We have a good example maybe of a Samloyot group. They are cooperative. The group that Dr. Salin mentioned, they are shrimp farmers cooperative. And the way they do it, they try to develop cluster and they link the work with other actors along the chain. Like the list management, they try also to look at how they manage the loan and how to find buyers and come up with good new technologies, something like that. So I think these are all the role of the cooperative in any sense, not just providing input, but also the capacity building and skill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
I can also add to what, to Dr. Tiparat. Yes, these are excellent examples. The one she mentioned in the Philippines, and also several shrimp farming cooperatives in Thailand. Very good, successful examples. The Samreot, and also another farm in Nakhon Nayok province. I think it's the one Dr. Nakano mentioned, because the farm in Nakhon Nayok, they have been growing shrimp exclusively for Japanese market. Even actually, I was closely involved with the farm, and we are actually planning, okay, we should supply the whole shrimp for Japan. So successful cooperatives could really enter their presence or make their presence in global value chain. And in India, I think the good example of Matsya-Fed in India, in Kerala, I think Matsya-Fed has a very good presence in the domestic market, of course, but they also very good presence in the processing sector with all their marketing infrastructure they have developed all these years. So I think the way the cooperatives are managed, I think we can really, make success stories from cooperatives. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now I'd like to take next question. That is, nowadays the COVID-19 pandemic has created a new challenges as well as new opportunity for the investment in aquaculture and its value chain. So what measures you are suggesting to mitigate such challenges?
Oh my God. Yeah, I think for COVID-19, in fact,
yes,
for me, I would really like to forget COVID-19, as I said before in my presentation, because COVID-19 would put some challenge, new challenges which we were not really familiar with. But I think it's a time we already have come out of that challenge, at least in the seafood industry. Many countries have resumed their operations, except the challenges with the international transport. But the biggest advantage is the local consumption. Domestic consumption has greatly improved. And also technology application in the domestic marketing industry has improved a lot. So these things will really be a positive prospect for the future of seafood industry. I think other learned members in the panel have more information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any panelists want to add? Then we can move to the next question. That is, what way other cooperative should support it so they can contribute significantly in the export or domestic marketing? because
cooperatives.
yes, sir. Professor Salih.
Yeah. Should I answer?
Yeah.
Cooperative support. Yeah, cooperatives, I think, in my experience, the technological support. In fact, when we work with the cooperatives, okay, as a scientist, if I work with a cooperative, my experience is I learn a lot from them because it's a collection of farmers and they have their own innovative ideas of how to run a farm in the context of a farm. So I think it's a win-win cooperation we need with a cooperative, because when we work with them, we give our inputs to them and we learn from them. So I think technological support we really need to give them, but at the same time we should also have some kind of continuous engagement with the group of farmers, so that they sustain. Because many a times the problem is many cooperatives, they don't sustain for long, except a few examples that we have quoted today. Either farmers lose interest or they lose interest by setbacks. But we really need to give them the boost. Financial boost is really important. At the same time, a good technical backup, so that they are not perplexed at a crisis. I don't really specify a pandemic, but crisis can be in different forms. So we should really support them at the time they need it most. Otherwise, they don't need much support in that sense.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One participant from Bangladesh has asked about seaweed. So they are culturing seaweed, and in our South Indian parts also, in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, they are doing the seaweed culture. So, but they are facing problem with this export or marketing. So how this can be resolved? Production is there, but in what way, how to export, on which country the demand is there for seaweed?
Yeah, I think marketing is, I missed that point, the marketing support. I think Dr. Tiparat, if we can, because seaweed, we have very good experience in Philippines.
For export of seaweed or what?
Yeah, can we support the seaweed farmers? Because the problem many farmers find it's the problem in marketing. For example, if you grow seaweed in India, there is no much local market. So how to find the export market? Yeah, there are many good markets in the Asian countries. So, or maybe FAO has any kind of experience with marketing.
For smallholders, that's obviously they need to be organized to be able to sell, to produce, first of all, high quality products. So therefore they can look for better opportunity for marketing their product, either in a fresh form or processed form. I think that's how to say, that's a minimum requirement, and usually they start with that. As a small holders, sometimes they have difficulty to comply to all the required standards. I think that's
yeah. Can I just join in for the answering of the seaweed issue? NEDAC member in Philippines, the Federation of Cooperatives that is a member, their member cooperatives, the members of the federation, they are successfully doing seaweed cultivation as well as marketing in Philippines. Some of them are exporting also. So within the NEDAC framework, we have some examples of successful work in seaweed area. I think we can facilitate that thing under the NEDAC framework.
I would like to thank all the participants and panelists for taking up the question and clarifying the doubts of the participant. Thank you. Now I request Ms. Quat to proceed further.
Yes. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of NEDAC Training Center, Bangkok, and partner Aquaculture and Aquatic Resources Management Program under the School of Environment, Resources and Development, Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok. And thanks all the dignity, the resources person, the participant, the IT support team, the NEDAC EXCO member, the NEDAC Bangkok State, and all others for the making this webinar bring value to the cooperatives and NEDAC member country networks. In particular, our deepest gratitude is to Dr. Raji Rajan, India Federal Secretary for Fishery, Ambassador of India in Thailand, Ambassador Mr. Enid in Kenya, Professor Dr. K.P. Salim, chairpersons of EARN program in Asia Institute of Technology, Bangkok, Mr. Bokut from COP Trade Japan, Dr. Diparet Pontana Banish, Aquaculture Officer in FAO Red Bangkok, Dr. P.R.R. Singh, Assistant Vice President from the CP Food Thailand for the success of this webinar. Last but not the least, our grateful thanks to Honorable Chairperson Mr. Sandeep Kumar Nadyet from the NEDAC for his leadership in venturing into new activities and area for NEDAC member. Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once